Lorne was a passionate advocate for democracy, freedom, and human rights, and helped ensure these issues were included as core to U.S. foreign policy priorities. I watched him lead critical efforts to free political prisoners like Rabia Kadir and give opportunities for the most oppressed to have a voice, all with a humanity and kindness that is rare. Beyond Lorne's professional successes and impacts, what always stood out and was yet another reason to admire him was that his family clearly meant everything to him. He always made it clear that he was a husband and father first. He offered me countless valuable parenting advice that I treasure to this day.
The day I met Lorne, we chatted as if we'd known each other our whole lives. I remember that day so clearly, and as if it were yesterday. Lorne had such a unique and natural way of empowering you to do your best, and he welcomed me into the greatest family of people dedicated to working hard to make the world a better and freer place where all have the opportunity to express their voice and live with dignity. I cannot thank Lorne enough, and I will continue to work towards the legacy that he leaves behind.
One of the things that I often think about Lorne was the way that he could remember just incredible detail about conversations he had had and interactions he had had. And I remember sitting in his office and having finished my little presentation, and he looked at me and he looked at these photos that I had brought of this building that we wanted to rebuild. And he just looked at me and said, "I think you're crazy." And then he laughed and he said, "But this is so cool." In all of the travel that I did with Lorne in Asia, I saw him use this skill of his over and over again.
Lorne Craner was one of the leading lights in championing the cause of democracy throughout the world. In Africa, he challenged our team to design innovative programs to confront autocracies from Sudan to Zimbabwe, and he inspired us with his passion and his commitment. Thousands of young, aspiring African political party officials have Lorne to thank for helping open up the space for political discourse and free elections.
IRI's work in Egypt after the 2011 Arab Spring ultimately led to the prosecution and conviction of a number of people who worked for IRI. One morning, shortly thereafter, I got a phone call from Lorne Craner. He told me to get a pencil and paper, and I did. And I got a little green sticky note, which I have here in my hands. And on it, I was told to write down the following countries. There were 9. Countries in Europe which had extradition treaties with Egypt. And these, Lorne told me, were countries that I was not to try to get to under any circumstances until this whole thing was taken care of. The president of the International Republican Institute took an interest specifically in calling me to let me know what places I needed to avoid because of what had happened in Egypt. And I will never forget that, and I will never get rid of this little green sticky note.
He also had a determined, some might say stubborn side. I love seeing that determination in the last days of 2011 as Lorne flew to Cairo with $10,000 in cash to lead the IRI election observation mission there. We needed the cash because just days earlier the Egyptian military had raided our offices, confiscated all of our money, and physically closed our office. Lorne could have scaled down the mission or sent someone else, but he was intent on completing our mission. I was lucky to spend a few days with Lorne as he shuttled around Cairo working to find a solution, as well as actually observe the election. And for me, most importantly, taking time to meet with the IRI staff, who were very shaken by all of this.
Lorne gave me my opportunity at IRI. He believed in me and took a chance sending this kid from Miami to the field. He always had a moment to talk to you and would always ask me how I was doing, how my family was, how my daughter was adjusting to Guatemala. He understood that what we were doing was bigger than oneself, and we always felt supported. Lorne always inspired me to do well, to keep going, to think big. I felt empowered. I will always be grateful for the opportunity I was given. It has significantly impacted my life.
Whenever I'm talking about IRI, I always say we. At IRI, we do this, we do that. I haven't worked there in 10 years, and I still say we. That's the type of leader Lorne was, the type of organization he built, the type of culture that he fostered. He made you feel that you were part of a team, a family, that you were part of something greater than yourself. He gave you a sense of empowerment and ownership. He made you feel invested in the work that you were doing. Once, a few years after I left IRI, Lorne took me to a meeting, and even though I was there as an outside consultant, I slipped a few times. After the meeting, he brought it up and he laughed. He said he was proud of the fact that IRI was the type of place where even after you left, you still said we.
I had just started working for Lorne at the Department of State and was arguing over the language to include in a reporting cable of a meeting I had attended together with the PDAS of EAP. Lorne overheard me on the phone and later pulled me aside, encouraging me. Always remember that your cables will someday be declassified. Make sure your kids will be proud of you when they read them.
Lorne came down to Bogota once, and at the end of our meetings one day, he says, "You want to go for a walk?" So I take him out, and we look at some of the problems that were prevalent back then. He asked me a lot of questions, and on some of the answers, he pushed me on. Others, I could see him really thinking through. And when I dropped him off, he smiled and he said, "This is one of the most important meetings of the day. Thanks." And he gave me that warm, approving smile. I never forgot that moment. And I just want to say I learned so much from Lorne, and I'm very grateful to him.
I first met Lorne when we were young staffers in the House of Representatives. From those earliest moments in his professional life, Lorne's interest was in the United States being supportive of people's aspirations for freedom and respect for the dignity of each individual. Lorne helped shape the landscape and instruments that exist today for the work of promoting human rights and democracy. His work and the initiatives he oversaw touched every region and continue to provide support to those seeking a better life. Thank you, Lorne. May you rest knowing that the mission to which you contributed so greatly continues.